Something which helped me very much, and during those approximately 9 years preliminary to our meeting Baba in the body, was the necessity for undoing old thought forms and old, scaffoldings, you might say, ways of thinking. And something that Baba presented to me was that in dreams I would see Baba's pictures. There were many, many photos in the house. Elizabeth had a very nice collection even at that time, and some of these that I have came from that period. And it was during my sleep that these pictures would come alive. It was just as if Baba would walk out of those pictures. And that happened so often. I took it for granted. I didn't even talk about it too much at that time. I suppose just my general habit with dreams generally was that I wasn't into analysis of dreams at all. I just accepted them at face value and didn't even talk too much about. But this was a common experience I had, was just really, I used to have those pictures come alive. Now, later on, I realized that that what the meditation that Baba gave us through Norina, and I think, and in the book that I found most congenial, was the meditation of the heart. And just knowing that Baba was in the heart, and that he really resided, and that we, with our alien and foreign thoughts, were repressing it. But he would, if the heart were truly purified, then he could show himself. And so it was loving Baba through the heart a great deal. Although some of the meditations Norina gave us was, she would always say, now think of Baba, right there in the pineal area. And I went through one other experience I had of how important it is to be self-forgetful of self and just focus on Baba, was when I was trying to do that during these years living with them, which was a little over 3 years actually. And I decided to cover over the mirror, because the mirror seemed to be a distraction, vanity and looking at yourself and all. And I covered it over. Nadine asked me, she said, "What have you done, Adele? Covered over your mirror?" And she said, "That's not necessary because," she said, "that kind of self-mortification, or whatever she called it, is not necessary," she told me. And I can see what the whole emphasis of Baba's training of these women, and their and then passing that kind of model on to us, stressed thinking of Baba. Right. So that, and Baba has somewhere told us too that self-denial is a very arduous thing, and not as desirable at all as self-forgetfulness. Yeah. And what a big difference. What a big difference in the two. There is. With self-denial, you're always you're always doing things a kind of awkward and forced way. Whereas if you just think of Baba and forget yourself, that's why I recall now how important those living pictures were. I didn't realize the function they served. Because all I could see was, that really holds your attention. Right. And that's one of the good things about meeting Baba in the body. But I can't forget ever what Bao had said about people who haven't met him in the body. He said, Baba's already done the work for them. for that new humanity, so that they come, as it were, free of those trammels of that journey. He didn't say it this way, but I am saying it this way. The journey from the head to the heart. Because with them, it seems to me the new humanity has already had the way plowed, and they can take the journey from the heart to the head so much more rapidly. And I have observed that. It's really quite a phenomenon to see how Baba has brought souls in who immediately recognize him. Because I can tell you, in living with Norina and Elizabeth and Nadine, those people were very hard nuts to crack. They always had heavy intellectual, metaphysical questions. They came from Rosicrucianism or anthroposophy or the Baha'i or Gurdjieff. All these really heavy intellectuals who really complicate life, just like those professors at Columbia. They don't have the point which is necessary to just, really run ahead in this life under the conditions of this planet, which is the heart dictates the end and the mind provides the means to that end. But nobody should have to prove that philosophically anymore. The family connection is made very plain. I mean, some people wonder about that. Baba has emphasized that when he is drawing you close to him, he is drawing also your family and your connections, not only your close family, but all your connections.
The connections, yeah.
So I think that's a source of tremendous delight.
I always think of that too, and that's a wonderful. That's an inspiration for you to make friends.
Well, isn't there something in everyone's heart which reaches out and is just sort of is an archetype of a missionary about everybody who is drawn to the source of truth, and or at least whatever they consider the source of truth. There's something on the good side wanting to share that. In 1952, we finally heard that Baba would be coming first. There were several changes, but it was decided finally, with correspondence with Elizabeth and Norina, that Baba would be coming with some of his men and women disciples in April of 1952, which he did. And at first, Phyllis and myself were invited to come for 3 weeks. We would be his guests. And then it was eventually changed to 2 weeks, and then finally it was changed to 1 week. And as we had been living with them, we were accustomed to changes, and we're not disappointed, as some people might be, that there was a change in plan, because this certainly was one of Baba's training methods, I would say. Sometime in late April, I don't remember just when, we found out that Baba would be arriving in New York by plane, but then from there he was scheduled to go to the old Pennsylvania station. And the old Pennsylvania station had several balconies. And Phyllis and I went up to the highest balcony, and then at one point at the scheduled time, this whole entourage with Baba most, elegantly were walking across that lower platform. And Baba really looked princely, very beautiful in white sadra and flowing hair. Prior to the accident, of course, that would be 1952. How old would be? Baba was then born in 1894, 6, and
right. Plus
6 and
plus 6 plus the 52. 58.
Yeah. And along with Baba were the ladies for the first time, MeherBabaLibrary, Kitty, Dr. Goer, Meru, Rano, and seems to me there was one other, but essentially those, and of course Margaret Krask was there, and Elizabeth. Norina was waiting for Baba in Myrtle Beach. Nadine had died. And then there was a man, there was Dr. Don Ken, and several of the disciples, of course. So as I looked down and saw them, I said to Phyllis, "Oh, there goes Baba." And suddenly she had, I was standing behind the pillar and looked down, and I thought we had agreed that we were not violating the order, which was from Baba, that Baba would not be meeting anyone. He would not be meeting anyone. But here we were observing him, and so I interpreted it that way, but she suddenly had a pang of conscience, and she didn't even look, but she took my full report. And then it was her observation that Baba had pointed up there and said, "Philadelphia." Well, I didn't even see. By that time, I was just transfixed on Baba. Nowhere she ever noted. There is a little contradiction there. Since she must have heard that, because I was going to say, she said she never looked, and yet she knew that happened. But I really feel that was conveyed to her finally by Margaret or someone. Margaret did come up, and she passed by us, not noticing us at all. She just was using the restroom. And that was, of course, my first glimpse of Baba in his human form.
Did Baba look up, or did you?
Yes.
Did you get that feeling?
Well, I got the feeling that he may have. It was quite a distance from the third balcony down. Yes, I did sort of have a feeling, but only later we heard, Phyllis was told that Baba definitely looked up and said, "Philadelphia." And though it was then that Baba was trained for Florence in South Carolina, and then from there were cars that would meet the entourage and Baba and drive them to the center. And finally, our date was May the 10th of 1952, when we drove down with John Bass and I think it was a lady called Agnes Bourne, not to be confused with Agnes Barron, and drove down to the center, and finally were called into the lagoon cabin on May the 10th. Phyllis at 9:30 and myself at 10, and then both together. I think it was 10 or close to 10 o'clock, and Meherji took notes, and that is how the Memories of 52 was written based on some of those notes. as well as, I'm sure, Phyllis's own notes and my notes, too. I did contribute notes every now and then. What Baba said, though, fortunately, was written down by Meherji, and if you like, I can read it.
Oh, I love that.
Now, it was all written in volume 14, number 2. And, let's see. Yes. And so Baba said, when we were called in, and Meherji's notes of our conversation, I heard to Adele, I heard about you from Norina Elizabeth Margaret, and I heard you from within. When I see such souls who love me, I feel very happy and strong. People like Phyllis are intimate ones. I love you because you love me so much. Then to both of us, Baba said, these two girls, I heard so much about you both, Phyllis and Adele, from Elizabeth, Norina, Donkin, and Margaret. In those days, our correspondence would go to Margaret or Donkin, to Baba, but the replies came from those. And within, and I feel so happy that at last I have seen you. Are you not nervous? No. I am overjoyed. Are you happy? Very happy. No more happy than I am in seeing you. When you know me, you will love me like a little child. I am a child, grown up. You, to Adele, are like money to me. Anyway, that story is interesting.
Yeah.
I told you that.
I'd like to hear that.
About the fact that Baba had to repeat it more than once because Baba, in having Meherji, or whichever disciple it was, that conveyed the message, or read the message from the alphabet board, in those days Baba used the alphabet board, said, you are like money to Baba. And I thought very self-consciously, now why am I like money to Baba? And so it was repeated the third time. Baba said that you are like Mani, his sister, to Baba. So that wiped away the confusion. Baba said, I love humor. I love to tease and work hard here at various places while talking to you now. And today, Phyllis and Adele have met me. And when you love me with pure, simple love, there should be no barrier. Love pure and simple. Then all doubts go away. Until then, mind gets tempted to doubt. Even if love is there, the mind goes on working, thinking, this is right, wrong, but love does not bother. Do you love me honestly? Yes. What more can you do for the beloved? I want love, nothing else. Love me and let God love us. That is what I want. When you love Baba, God will love you. And God's loving means everything. So, Phyllis and Adele both, I am very, very happy. One who is the humblest of the humble is greatest of the great. But it has to be in all honesty, in all truth. Better not believe in God than be a hypocrite. So let us love Adele, love all else. No, my name was not used there, excuse me. So let us love. I was looking at the next line. All else is illusion. So Adele, what more can you do if you really love me? Do you love me? Yes. We'll go on with that. I think that it's important to know why Baba was so compassionate and stressing that. I think I told you that when I was invited to live with the ladies, I really felt terribly privileged and also at the same time not worthy. And in one way it was grace to wait about 9 years to feel that at least we were getting some training on how to present ourselves to the Master. You know, it's like the people that in England when they have to be presented to the court, to the Queen. And of course the analogy is from the ridiculous to the sublime. So we did really have that opportunity to find out what made such noble women to begin with. Because my great self-consciousness also did manifest by thinking, well, you know, I mean, here we are living with these three outstanding women. And I used to feel, oh, Baba, please. I just find that I want to come to you, but not on any, in any connection with them, because they're quite different. And Narendra used to say, Baba says, through thought transmission, Baba says, you come to him on the same platform as everyone. She had to tell me things. Well, anyway, so that was Baba in his great compassion. See, Baba is inside of you, the voice and the heart, and he just needed to boost me up because I really, moreover, came in 52. After Baba said that when the choice was made between my going into nursing professionally at that time, I had written to Baba and asked whether I should or return to the university and complete a degree. Baba's knowing your heart, where it is and what it needs to prove, I want you to go back and finish your degree. Well, that's what he had to allow me to, unravel those samskars, and I never could finish that degree. The emphasis was, it was an opportunity to study much more of Baba, but I did not have the facility at the time to weave Baba through the standards, the curriculum standards of a philosophy department, which was, the demands were pretty high, intellectual academic standards, and never did have that capacity, and I had to acknowledge it. Well, in meeting Baba this time, he knew very well that I hadn't finished it, and so at one point he did have to reflect back what he had told me. Well, did you finish your degree? And I imagine I looked very sheepish, as Phyllis described it, and I said, no, I haven't, Baba. And he lifted my whole spirit, and he said, oh, but then I am your master. So that for once and for all determined that I would not yearn for any kind of a master's in that field in any case. We had many days with Baba. It was a week. Now, before the week was up, so many wonderful things happened. There is a chronological account of that week. If you don't mind, I'll just look at the book here. Well, we were at Baba's guest house a number of times, and sometimes there were just very few. This was the week when and the year when the center was not open to the public. Moreover, there were very few guests who were invited to stay on the center to begin with. And on this one invitation, Bob accepted the gifts of a few of us, and the gift I had was a scarf that I had made for Baba. And the impression that Phyllis had about it was that he tucked it lovingly in his pocket, and I felt he was tucking Adele into his pocket. Well, that was very sweet that she said that. Baba said, I gave Bob a pen, incidentally, a fountain pen, and then eventually Monty sent a picture of Baba signing God Speaks, and she said he's signing it with your pen. So I don't know whether it was just my book, but I don't think, no, I think the inference was that he used your pen to sign the books, God Speaks. So that was a picture I still have, as a matter of fact. Well, on another occasion, we were invited to Baba's house, the house that was built according to Baba's specifications, and which was built so that Baba was so thrilled with it, you might say. He said, "This is my favorite home," and that I'm always here. I think that's extremely important to remember. And when you enter Baba's house, you really know he's there, just as you do when you enter the center. I always feel so really transported at the center. In a way, it's, you sort of lose sense of reality there. You're in another world, literally. And I think it's important always to have your both feet on the ground, but when you are there, you have the right perspective, which is that God alone is real. And what happens out there in the center in your world is really a play of God's shadow, which is Maya, and just take it. And if you could always have that perspective, I think you would do exactly what Baba liked, which is to be happy and not worry. And he said that time and time again. I'm going to just have an evening on this at our center here in LA devoted to that subject of how Baba has given that as one of the main themes, that we should not worry and be happy. Another time when Baba did show the house, as I say, he took both, as Phyllis and I were going up those few steps, he took both of our hands in his. And it seemed so, so much like a marriage ceremony that I just said, "Baba, what is this? Are we getting married or something?" And Baba said, he pointed to his heart with both fingers. We interpreted that we were married to him individually, because certainly we both are very different people. And I think if Phyllis were a man or if I were a man and she were a woman, I don't think we'd ever marry.
It sounds like some of the most exciting moments with Baba were at his house, yes. But they're all over the
No, the most exciting moments were at the guest house, which was called also, another name for the guest house was the House of the Eastern Women. And during that week, Baba called us in frequently in the evening. At 6 o'clock, he would leave very promptly. But we were there with Mera and Moni and the Eastern women, and some of the Western women as well. And on one evening, Baba said, "I want to play a numbers game. I'm thinking of a number from 1 to 22. And everyone guessed their number, whatever. It was incorrect until Baba asked me, and I said 11. And Baba said, that's it. And then it was exactly 11 days later that Baba had the accident.
How many people would you guess were there at the center during this time?
I can only recall that in the photos that I have, I think I showed them to you. The other women, other than Phyllis and myself, were Ivy and Charmy, and I don't think Sparky, a friend of theirs, was staying on the center, but she certainly was visiting, and people would not necessarily stay on the center, but they would visit the center. As I say, I don't really remember how many, but not very many.
Seems small.
Very small. We stayed in the we either stayed in the lantern cabin or in the lantern cabin, I think is where we stayed. And then there was a story that I have told at our center several times. One evening in the guest house, Baba said, I would like you to tell me a religious story or a funny story. And the religious story I told him was that St. Peter, in the circle of the time of Jesus Christ, had betrayed Jesus, would betray Jesus as Jesus had forewarned him before the cock would crow 3 times. And this actually happened. And Baba, at that point, leaned forward and he said, but Peter loved me the most. And then Adelia, who was there in the guest house, said, and Judas? What was the role of Judas, Baba? And Baba said, Judas served me the best. He was he was the one who served me the best. And Baba said, further explaining the roles of these 2 disciples, what Peter did, he had to do, he did it consciously. What Judas did, he had to do, and he did it under a veil. I'll just read what Phyllis had written about it. The greatest service was Judas' betrayal. When he kissed Christ on the cheek, he did nothing. This is a quote. This is taken from the literal notes. God did it all. He behaved under a veil. He had the most difficult thing to do for the Master of all the disciples. In that evening, it was when Baba gave us that message, which is so engraved in my heart. Nothing matters but love for God. And Baba said to us, the musts have this love. One must drown in the lake of fire and come out unscathed to reach God. Now she quotes again something from the notes. Phyllis, Adele, do you love me? It is my love. Do you understand? Yes, Baba. Hundreds of years from now, people will be talking about what we did here, what happened while the Master was here, and then I will come again, and again, and again. And so will all of you. Phyllis and Adele do love me. You have been with me before. I have known you since ages. You do not know how long. Do not worry for anything. Only love more and more and more. Let these words be inscribed in your heart. Nothing is real but God. Never gone.
That's beautiful.
Bob,
had you heard that line before? Was that the first time you heard it?
No, that's the first time we had heard it. The first time we had heard it. Baba had an open day, as you know, before the week was up. And on that day, about 700 people came. We had been privileged again to have an order from Baba. We didn't have too many orders, actually, during that time, because Baba said we were his guests. And, of course, it would have been enormous grace to have had his order, but he just, as it were, having us play it cool. And so we were asked to stand there on the back porch and guide people down the steps and onto the path and let them wander so that they wouldn't wander off into the woods. In this way, we saw everybody who came to see Baba.
I imagine some of them did wander into the woods after.
Yes, I do remember a couple that did. But I was with them, as a matter of fact. They didn't wander into the woods. They would have, perhaps. Saturday, May the 17th, that was when it took place. And then I think it was really significant that when the company of black people came, that they were the only company for whom Baba would stand up. And that was 1952. And that was the same year in which the Supreme Court had passed the Civil Rights Law. There are many things, many events which can be correlated with historical moments of greatest importance if one wanted to ever make that kind of correlation with Baba. I remember that Baba, when he introduced me to Dr. Goer, somehow meeting her had very special significance. Needless to say, meeting Mehera was just so overwhelming. But just to point out about my relationship with Dr. Goer, it's just that Baba took a little more time in our introduction. And I believe that the outcome of that was that when Goer returned to India in '52 with Baba after the first accident, she always had allowed me to be a sort of intermediary in obtaining medical supplies and providing me with informations about Baba's condition, so that I could either do some further research or share it with others who would be helpful in medical ways, not just to share it from the standpoint of news, because that was not my function.
Right.
Indeed, that was Mani's function with the family letters, but just sharing it with people who were influential medically. And that was, for example, there was one time when she wanted some information on continual pain that Baba had, unrelieved pain, and she said there was a type of, there was something that was being used. I don't know, she gave me a clue or so. But it led me to go to Dr. who was appointed as John F. Kennedy's private physician eventually. And she had not been appointed yet. But I lived near New York Hospital, where she was on the staff. And I have a beautiful letter from her, incidentally, because I had given her a book to give to the White House Library, which she did. And she wrote, but at this time, to go back in the story, I had I was able to reach her and find out about a certain spray which was used to reduce the pain that Kennedy had. Kennedy had, as a result of his maneuvers, during the war, had chronic pain. And this particular, it was a woman physician, had developed some kind of a spray which reduced the pain and anesthetized the part in order to apply the injections. In any case, it was just shortly before she'd been appointed as a private physician by Kennedy that I contacted her. And she said, and she gave me quite a lot of this medication. She said, we'll have to do this, within this period of time because I'm moving to the White House, or, thereabouts. It was just right at that moment. Just then and there. And I obtained what I had to, and then eventually I sent her a book on Baba, and she thanked me for it and said that she would present it to the White House Library. But throughout all Baba's accidents, 1952, 1956, I was able to be intermediary for one of them. I'm sure Dr. Goer had connections with a number of people, but I was very pleased because it enabled me to be used, you might say, in many interesting ways. One of them was connecting up with Dr. Kenmore. And that was a very interesting connection due to the fact that I was sharing material of interest to everyone, but with Dr. Kenmore, since he was a medical person. When we were standing in a circle, several of us, as I say, there were relatively few people that were permitted to stay on the center outside the guest house. And then Baba turned to me and he asked me what I was thinking. And I said, I'm thinking about my brothers. And I have 3 brothers. Will they be drawn to you? Will they come to you? Will they come to you? And Baba said, don't worry, in time. They will come to me in time. So there I was, and it wasn't very much long after that. We were still in the circle, and I heard on this amplifying system, public address system, my name, and was asked to come to the phone. And it was my brother on the phone, and said, we've been trying to reach you, and finally got a hold of you to tell you that our mother is in the hospital, and she is inoperable. She is going to have to get some nursing care. And when Baba heard about that, he said, yes, you should go and take care of your mother. And this was the time just before Baba was going to leave for, go on that journey to California to meet his other lovers that were waiting for him. And I left for Ohio, which is where my mother was in the hospital. And when I arrived there, I had a rather guilt complex about not giving my mother enough attention and devotion, although it was just I had not really any counseling about such a complex, which I probably should have had, but I said, when I saw her in pain and suffering, and I wasn't allowed to stay past the visiting hours, and that rather bothered me. And I just sort of reached out in my heart to Baba and asked him if I could suffer for my mother a little and relieve some of her suffering. And that very night, I took quite ill with a inflamed appendix, and it required a midnight surgery. And the curious thing was that after that surgery, it granted me the wish to be near her and not be obliged, to leave with the rest of the visitors, because they put me right next to her in the same sort of half ward, and it really was remarkable, because it was a blessing, and the surgery was such. I just didn't know I had surgery. Either the man was a genius who performed the surgery, it was my brother's friend, or it was meant to be. But I was up the next morning. I really was. I was just up and at it all, and I was with her for the duration, because after that, we took her home to my brother's home, and then eventually. I did get permission from Baba to visit him in Hartsdale, where he stayed during his convalescence for a little bit.
Now, the mood, just as you were leaving Myrtle Beach there, must have been getting pretty serious down there when Baba was about to leave Myrtle Beach. And that must have been an interesting personality change in Baba, too, from the very loving to the very serious.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true. When I was told that I would have to have an appendectomy that night, I called up Myrtle Beach and spoke to Delia.
Right.
And she said, I told her that I didn't believe in surgery. Well, there is an alternative. Yeah. You can freeze an appendix, but anyway, of course, I was going to have it. My brother is a firm believer. He's a top surgeon. But she said, well, Baba said, do whatever the doctor says. So I got Baba's okay on that.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Well, that sounds like a good place to stop for this evening. And then we'll start back up with anything you might remember from that trip, and then continue into when you saw Baba up in Hartsdale. And all that. That sounds like a good point. Yeah, I mean, there may be just one other thing as far as the center goes, but that we can proceed while it's on your mind, it might be.
Yeah, I always think I'm going to be better prepared, Charlie, than I am.
No. You're perfect. That's just right. You're not meant to have have everything right on your fingertips.
Well, I'll tell you, Phyllis has written it so beautifully that all I'd like to do is sit down and just read this.
Fine. That's perfect.
No, I mean, you want me to?
Oh, sure. No, that'd be that, because they'll spark little bits of things that you might want to comment on.
I think what I'll do is take out parts that she has written. You're not doing this now,
I can stop.
I really will do that. Oh, right.
And don't hesitate just to do it whatever feels the most comfortable. I mean, reading it then coming up with thoughts while you're reading it even is fine. I mean, there's no...
There is an interesting part here which I will read. It's about when Baba said, how much do you owe?
How much do you owe?
Oh, how much money do you owe?
Oh, I see.
And so I said, well, $15 and 5 of them to Phyllis. Baba said, Rano, you pay their debts. Phyllis owed more, a little more, not much, and Baba paid our debts. Further, he told us to call on him if we ever needed help. He said we were part of his family. What actually happened was that things improved financially for both of us after that. Forgiving our debts obviously had a deeper meaning. So, we're very compassionate. Every move we ever made. So. It's just another one.
It's wonderful. That's so personal too. You know, when that that shows Baba's personal concern.
Yeah, he said, "How much money do you have?"
He wanted everything to be organized. Yeah, that's wonderful.
And what debts do you have?
Yeah.
Well, Baba, it was through living with the ladies that I developed any kind of sense of saving. Mm-hmm. I didn't have that from my home environment at all. No, just so kind of loose. Mm-hmm. Not that they, didn't have. They had enough money. One time more, sometimes less. During the Depression, much less. But there wasn't any sort of prudent sense now. The men, that's different. They learned it their way. Right. But I was the only girl. And so they said, she doesn't have to know anything. The old-fashioned idea is pretty stupid, see, that was it. And one of the pet names they gave me was Dumbbell.
You're kidding.
No, but not in Russian.
Your brother?
No. The family. No. Little Cow. Mm-hmm. That was a little cow, it's a Russian term, They had, but I mean, it's an awful, cow. It wasn't that I was so fat. Yeah. It meant that, she's just like a little pet cow.
Yeah.
Baba knew he had a lot to unravel in my life.
Well, it sounds like it affected your family a lot of changes for them too, and the connections with Baba. I mean.
Oh yes, definitely. When my father met Baba, he was really very impressed. Right. He didn't say too much. He and Mr. Frederick had lunch together, Phyllis and I, and they both agreed that Baba was an extraordinary person, person with the emphasis on person.
Yeah. Cleared the air for them as far as putting their minds at ease.
We didn't have recorders in those days, but Baba had my father come in, and he told him some stories from the Bible. See, if I had only known, but I was weeping all the time. I was weeping all the time because my father had separated from my mother, and she was dying. See, I only had this reprieve, so to speak, to come to see Baba at Ivy Deuce's home during that period. Right. But then it was just a little, some kind of a respite.
Right.
Just between. Yeah. But then I'd go back, and hear my father, here she was dying, and he's off in another world, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Baba saw him, which is very...
It's really special.
Well, he sent my mother grapes. They want you to give her one every day with my love. He wanted I think he also said that because she was sick, was suffering when Baba was suffering, that was also special. I always felt that was special.